the HealthTech listeners, I'm your host this week, Rebecca Linley, Senior Communications Executive. This is the podcast where we tackle some of the trending topics, ideas, best practice in health and social care. This week we're speaking with Ellie Jordan, our newly promoted Account Director. Ellie's journey with Radar Healthcare spans over an impressive 6 years, during which she showcased her exceptional talent and dedication across various roles within the organisation. Now, as Account Director, Ellie's diverse background and well-rounded knowledge equips her with deep insights into our solutions and customer needs. Join us as we explore how Ellie's experience and new role will improve our partners' success with Radar Healthcare. So, thanks for joining us this week, Ellie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, firstly, congratulations. I know you've obviously been in the role a couple of months now. So we'll just jump straight into the first question then. Can you walk us through your journey with Radar Healthcare so far?
So, I joined back in 2018. Radar Healthcare was a lot smaller. We were just like one room of people, a couple of salespeople on the road, but everybody was in one room, knew everybody. So I came in as product specialist, and we had one project manager who looked after all the projects alongside Lee Williams. And then there was myself who managed all of our customer base at that time, and also managed all the training and support queries as well alongside our support desk. So again, we had, I think it was 2 support agents we had at that time as well. So much smaller business.
Yeah.
From there, so I worked really closely with all our accounts and with all our customers, which is what I love. And we've grown from there. So over that time, my role we changed, and how kind of as the business grew, how we supported our customers needed to adapt and evolve as well with the growth. So that's where I became a customer success manager. Mm-hmm. So focusing purely on the customers as opposed to any of the support elements as well. So I used to deal with all training and all, like I say, the help desk, the user guides, everything like that. So as we grew, my role then became much more just customer focused, and the help desk and the support guides and everything else was managed by the support team as well. And then, so over that time, I then took a break while I had my daughter, and then came back and moved into product owner. So I worked with Mark Fewster, who's at the time, he was our product manager. He's now our chief product officer. So worked really closely with him in terms of the development of the product, so capturing the requirements of the product and working on different development projects. And then, I officially started in March as account director, but there was quite a long transition period while I was doing product and this role for a period. So the last month really I've kind of been in post properly, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it, to think how much has changed from 2018, though.
So much has changed.
The size of the team,
the size of the team
that we help,
the product as well. When I look back at some of the old videos and user guides from when I first joined, Radar itself as a product was massively different. And some of the things that we take for granted now in terms of like the analytics and different aspects in the product, they didn't exist back then. So we've come on leaps and bounds since then.
Yeah, and it's nice to see that you've obviously grown within the company too. And I think a lot of employees, obviously, like you mentioned, Mark there too, have that kind of experience.
I think Radar Healthcare as a company puts a lot of emphasis on growing staff internally. So I've had loads of support in terms of my personal and professional development. So getting to where I wanted to be. At the time, I thought I wanted to move into product, and I got all of the support and guidance and training that I could to get into the product role. And I know we're going to come on to kind of why I moved over into account director role shortly. But Radar Healthcare as a business really supports its staff. So I think there's a lot of people internally who've managed to grow through the company, which is brilliant.
Yeah, it's so important, isn't it? Just to keep your talented people.
Yeah. Definitely. And it makes you loyal to the company as well, so which is really important.
So as you've just mentioned, obviously there was a need for this new role. It's brand new to Radar Healthcare, so you now sit on the partnerships team. So would you be able to give us a little bit of insight into what the need was for the role and kind of day-to-day responsibilities?
Yep. So as account director, I've basically got strategic oversight over all of our accounts. So we still have our partnerships managers who they are the day-to-day contacts for all of our various customers. And then as account director, I oversee managing things like making sure that our customer satisfaction is high, because we want to, keep our customers. We want everybody to be satisfied. We also want to grow. So it's also having oversight of the strategy around, how do we grow customers in terms of the product usage and kind of the opportunities there, as well as helping to see what opportunities there might be for further growth with expansion of different customers. So if we have a particular customer who's a small part of a larger group, being able to kind of hopefully manage how we can get the rest of the group on board and that sort of thing in terms of the opportunities there. And then from a personal perspective, in terms of, what I liked about the role. So I mentioned that I worked in product for 2 years and I had a lot of support to get into the product role. One of the things that I've been really lucky to do is work across so many different aspects of Radar. So I know kind of the product inside out. I know kind of how we work and our processes. Until I went into product, I had no insight into kind of the development side of the product. It just, it was built and it appeared.
Yeah. That's what we like to think.
Yeah, it's all the magic behind the scenes. So the product role really gave me a massive insight and understanding in the whole of the development process. And that's been really powerful in the account director role, I think, because it helps me when I'm talking with customers and also with the partnership managers and the other people in the business, trying to kind of translate how the processes behind the scenes work and actually how our development cycle works, what happens when ideas and developments are suggested, and actually how long a development piece can take, and understanding all of that and the communication of that to the customer as well has been really useful to have that insight.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, isn't it? Understanding that development process, because a customer won't necessarily know how long something takes to build, or they might see this is the vision that they're after, but the actual technical, the magic bit, as you said, behind it to make that come to life. And I think that's really key. Definitely.
And I think the being able to manage the communications with customers really well.
And expectations.
And the expectations. It helps if you understand in yourself what that is, so you're not passing on a message, you actually understand, so being able to help other guys understand that in the teams as well. And sometimes I've been really surprised in the past where something that sounds such a simple suggestion actually turns into this mammoth big task, because there's all this stuff behind the scenes in terms of how it's developed that goes on. And it's really, really interesting. One of the things I particularly love about the new role is being back out with customers. So we've always been customer led in our development. So in product, I kind of had a lot of contact with customers still. So requirements captures and kind of working out where the product needs to go, what features we need and how that fits in the market. And one thing that I realised I really missed was actually being out and about with customers, being on site and actually being able to help on the front line rather than behind the scenes. I love being able to do that now. That's one of the aspects I'm enjoying the most at the minute.
Yeah, and I think you're in such a unique position that you've got that dual perspective. You've worked obviously as a customer success manager, so you've got that understanding of what our customers actually really need, and then you've got that technical perspective too, obviously with your experience in product too. And I think that's key to this role, especially with it being new to Radar too. And I guess it's a nice transition too as well, because you've already built that relationship with a lot of the customers, so it's not like a complete new face. They already know who you are. Obviously you're one of the leads on the community, so collecting feedback and stuff like that was part of your product role anyway.
Yeah, there's some customers that I've worked with across all the different roles I've done. So, I might have worked with them right at the start when I first, started at Radar. And all the way through, I've worked with some of them through requirements captures and product development. So we do beta groups, which is a group of customers that we get together when we're developing. So working with them there, and then kind of now looking after them on a kind of a strategic account perspective as well. So there's been a lovely growth in that regard as well, and having those different relationships and the trust with customers as well.
Yeah, I think that's so key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it definitely is key that actually we really want our partners to trust us as kind of individuals as well as a company and as a product. So yeah, that really helps with the relationship, I think.
So I guess that leads me on really nicely then. You kind of have touched on this already, but how do you identify and align with the unique goals of our customers?
So every customer is different. There are definite similarities, and we tend to group our customers. We've started most recently grouping our customers by different sectors. So we now have quite a number of NHS trusts. We have independent organisations. We have a lot in the care sector. So care is where we started out. So we kind of have gathered groups together in terms of user groups in those different sectors, and that is really useful because getting people in a room and talking as a collective, you get so much more insight. So that's really powerful and really useful for a sector basis, but individual customers are always going to be slightly different. Everybody works differently, and actually just getting in front of a customer and chatting, and Teams is really useful. Obviously, we all moved to Teams, I think, in COVID. Teams just became this massive thing that maybe we didn't really use before. But nothing beats getting in front of a customer and actually face to face. And you get so much more from just the chit chat on the walk to the meeting room as you do actually in a formal meeting as well. So, and that really helps to kind of understand behind the scenes. Another thing that I found really useful and really interesting is when you get on site with customers in terms of being able to walk around. So I've been on site with one of our NHS trusts and walked around the wards while they were completing audits. That was really interesting and really useful to kind of see actually, hand hygiene audit, it kind of makes sense. I know what it is, but actually seeing someone doing an audit and observing and actually the importance, then putting it in kind of the real scenario of how important it is. So I'd like to get more of that. And our partnerships managers as well, it's really important for them to get out with the customers and actually see Radar Healthcare in practice. Yeah, definitely. I think that is such a good point, isn't it, about that we've become such quite a virtual world, and then sometimes it's really important to meet face to face and see these things in real life, because it's easy for us to be like, oh, well, we think this works in practice, but you don't actually know. This is real life nurses and doctors and care professionals using these systems, so we need to really see how it's working for them and how we can adjust it to tailor to their needs, obviously, which is obviously going to be different for every single organisation. Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with organisations where you've got, a team of 3 people whose sole responsibility it is to look after Radar versus another organisation I remember going to visit, and it was an air ambulance, and actually, first and foremost, he was a paramedic, and he just happened to look after Radar as well, and then everybody in between. So it is really important. And also it's very easy when you're sat behind a desk to kind of think, I think this is how it would work for a nurse or for whoever it might be, or a carer, but actually seeing them on the ground and kind of seeing actually the stresses and pressures, and Radar
such a busy environment.
Radar's pretty low down on the list of why somebody becomes a carer or a nurse or whatever it is. Actually, it just needs to be super easy and doesn't add any stress to anybody's job, actually just needs to make it easier, and it's something they don't need to think about, and that really is the priority. And well, it's that thing, I can't remember which customer it was now that said it to us, but it just really struck a chord with me. I didn't go into healthcare because I loved computers. So it's so true. And a lot of the time you don't necessarily appreciate some of the challenges around. We kind of accept IT literacy as a challenge, but then also there's English as a first language and loads of other kind of accessibility things that we need to consider. And again, just seeing it on the front line, it really helps. So obviously you've just mentioned user groups, which is quite a new thing to Radar Healthcare again. So for those that don't know, could you explain what those are a little bit and the different ones that we offer? Yeah, absolutely. So our main one is the NHS, our first one is the NHS user group, and that was the one that kind of started life first. And I might be wrong on this, I wasn't involved right at the start, but I believe they kind of started it themselves. So NHS customers, the NHS is really powerful for sharing between each other anyway. So we were aware of a collective group that came together themselves. We didn't create this group. It is first and foremost led by our NHS partners. They got together to kind of share best practice and talk around Radar Healthcare. both in terms of what they're doing, sharing content, making sure people aren't reinventing the wheel, and kind of talking through different problems that people might be having in terms of, how do you deal with this? How do you solve that? Let me see what you're doing for this audit and all of that sort of thing. So that's our NHS group, and that's I think that was our first user group and where we started out. And we've now got our care user group. We have an independent user group. So we're basically trying to emulate what has been really successful with the NHS user group with the different sectors. It's going to be super useful for our partnerships managers. So when we've got our kind of NHS specialist partnerships manager, they can go to the NHS one. Our care specialists can go to the care ones, and they're going to get loads of insight and loads of information around the sector and what's important and how different people are doing different things. So it's going to be really, really useful. And then hopefully, I think the intention is that we're going to end up having kind of one big annual group where we can bring everybody together face to face and have a nice big event where everybody pulls together and kind of make a real event of it. We do a mixture of teams and face to face user groups. So we'll do every month or every 2 months it's a Teams, and then every 3 months it's face to face. So it's a nice balance. Yeah. And we also will kind of balance where we meeting up in the country. So it might be London, it might be Birmingham, whatever makes sense for that collective group of people, so that the majority can get there and meet as well. But yeah, I'm really excited. They're relatively new, so I'm excited to see what we can get from them.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the fact that it's customer led, and that it was born from our customers as well. Yeah. Obviously, that shows how engaged they are with making this system super successful and sharing best practices, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not led by us. They're led by our customers. So we kind of have a chair that is a customer within each of the groups, and we will join and kind of talk through things. We might host something, but primarily it's the customers and our partners leading on it.
So yeah, and that's obviously just one aspect of how we really value and work with our partners, and drive their engagement and involvement in everything that we do.
Yeah, 100%. So one thing that we're super really proud of is how we work in partnership with our customers. So we don't want it to be a one-way relationship. We really need kind of that two-way feed of our partners feeding into us and also feeding into a collective. There's so many people doing the same things with the same common goal of kind of improving safety and improving outcomes, that actually if they can share and we can facilitate that sharing, then it's just going to make a kind of, improve the outcomes for everybody and make it easier for everybody. And there's a few different ways that we can do that. So we've got the community. So that is a place where people, regardless of kind of their role, their organisation, the type of organisation they are, whether they're just a really super small care home versus a massive NHS acute trust, they can all go onto the community and share with each other. And we have kind of little groups that we use. So we've got groups for each of our user groups, can have a group that they can talk amongst themselves. We also have groups around different parts of the product. So we've got an analytics group where it's ask questions and help each other. There's one particular customer that I work with, and she tells me regularly that I think it's her Friday afternoon is her community time, where she goes on and kind of looks at what people are asking and answers questions, and kind of that's her time to do that and help people, and I think that's really lovely, and that's exactly the sort of thing we want to get to.
Exactly. It's just offering another resource for quick information, because obviously, as you said, these are really busy people. Yeah. So they need to have that fast reaction of being able to get the information that they need. Yeah. Which I guess ties it in really nicely to the next part, which is obviously we've had a slight restructure within your team recently, taking a bit more of a four-pronged approach. I won't say anything else. So do you want to kind of introduce that as how? Yeah.
So absolutely. So we have had a bit of a restructure. The purpose being that we recognise that actually as we've grown, we need to evolve in terms of how we manage and support our partners. So our customer success managers, as they have now moved into the partnerships team, and they are now partnership managers, managing the relationship, managing the success of the customer. We have our project managers who they've not really changed what they're doing. They carry on. They do a fantastic job as they are. Why change something that works? Yeah. So our project team is as is. We've also introduced a brand new role, which is product consultant. And this is a brand new team that they are basically filling a bit of a product consultancy, a gap basically that we've identified as we've gone through. So it's enabling people to get that consultancy and that advice, that best practice. We've been doing this for years now. We know what works, both in terms of kind of how to get the best out of the data, how to get the best out of the product. When people are building out their analytics dashboards, how to get the best out of the data, building something that is really powerful for the different audiences, which is really important. And one of the things that has been, I guess it's a difficulty with being such a configurable system is that just because you can do something doesn't always mean you should. And that's where our product consultants will be able to come in and kind of advise on the best way forward of doing things.
Offer expertise and...
Yes, 100% that expertise. And what that's going to help is drive... how we can respond to configuration changes. So I'm talking probably primarily events, although there are other elements as well. So the analytics, workforce compliance, the different areas of Radar that are configurable. One of the things that we've had in terms of the feedback from customers is that actually some of our configuration, wouldn't it be great if we could have somebody guiding and building and kind of leading on scoping that configuration out, especially when it's the big stuff. So that's what the product consultants will be able to do. They'll be able to go on site, they'll be able to scope it, plan it, build it ideally there and then, and actually then hopefully get the turnaround time a lot quicker for people as well. So in the absence of being able to self-serve on some of this complex stuff, actually having a really quick, smooth turnaround time on some of that, that's hopefully where we can get to with these product consultants.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, isn't it? This is all being driven, again, from feedback, direct feedback from customers. Yeah,
100%. And as well as that, things like having specialist knowledge, so our partnerships managers, we've had a bit of a shuffle in terms of now, instead of them having a broad range of all different sector types, actually they're going to specialise. So we'll have an NHS specialist, and actually they're going to then be able to draw on all the different knowledge and expertise from all of their different customers. And then when they're going into different organisations, they'll know what works, what other people have done. So, and the same for the care in the independent sector, we're going to have kind of these specialists in terms of our partnership managers, and that's going to be a really powerful way of getting all of that information that we can then share internally, and we'll make sure that it's not siloed. That's really important. But it's going to be hopefully a really powerful way to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it comes back full circle to the first question about when we was talking about personal development within Radar Healthcare. I think that is obviously a huge thing internally, and this restructure is obviously going to do that within the different areas within the partnerships team.
Definitely. And it's quite interesting actually, because as we've restructured and as we've grown, there's different people have different strengths and different things that they enjoy and that they're good at, and it's just allowed, as an organisation, we can kind of tailor to that and work with people in terms of where their talents lie, where their skill set lies,
where they see themselves going as well in the future.
Yeah, 100%. So it allows for that growth.
So I guess off the back of that then, how does your role work with these different teams within the partnerships team?
So my role as account director, I work alongside the partnership managers. So as I said at the start there, the day-to-day contacts with our different customers. I look after some of the strategic accounts, but I also offer the support in terms of some of the commercial aspects. So when it comes to kind of looking at the renewals and the contracts with customers, also helping ensure that they've got support where they need it in terms of if we've got a particular customer who maybe is not as happy as we would like them to be, how can we turn that around? How can we ensure that they're getting the value? And also if there's any aspects of the product where there might be opportunities for growth, then I can support with that as well. So some partnership managers and some aspects of the product, they're going to be more confident than others. So I'm basically there as somebody who can support them. I can demo. This is where my product background comes in really handy. You know, I can have those conversations, especially if it's around one of the areas that I've been involved directly with the development. So yeah, I can have those conversations. I can support with any kind of demos, any spotting any opportunity for growth within an organisation. So yeah, working hand in hand with the partnership managers alongside them, which I'm really looking forward to, because I've worked in the product team now for a number of years, and it's a fabulous team, but it's quite a small team. So I'm really looking forward to being part of a big team again, actually.
Yeah, it's quite a big change, actually. I didn't think about that.
So I've gone from working as one of 3 or 4 to now one of 7, I think it is, or 8. So yeah, it's nice to have kind of a team around you again.
Yeah. And we're always growing.
We are always growing, yes. So
surely will be more.
I'm sure there will be, yeah. So I think at the time of recording this, I might be wrong, might need to cut this out. So I think at the time of recording this, I think we do maybe have an opportunity as well for another partnerships manager. So whether that's internal, somebody wanting to move internally, or whether it's external. So yeah, we're continually growing.
So what sets Radar Healthcare apart in the market then, in your opinion? I guess from all your different skills within Radar Healthcare.
I would say there's 2 different aspects that really set us apart. First and foremost, our partnerships approach. I think we've already covered and kind of already made really clear that we're really proud and feel really strongly about our partnerships approach. And that really comes across when you're talking to customers who have maybe come from a different system where they've not had that. So actually they really value having someone on the end of the phone, having someone come on site. And from the support perspective in terms of actually, helping them with how they're using the system and getting the value out of the system, but also on the product side in terms of how we develop it and them having a voice into the product and the development and a true voice where we gather customers and we genuinely take feedback and we genuinely are developing in line with what our customers are requesting and what they're feeding in. So all of that, the product and the communication and the partnership approach, I think is what really sets us apart and what we're really proud of, and that's what we want to keep. And as we grow, we want to make sure that we're keeping that part of Radar Healthcare. Yeah,
I think that's a really good point around how tech companies typically aren't the easiest to get in touch with. When I came on board with Radar Healthcare 2.5 years ago now, I was almost like pleasantly surprised at how involved customers are with giving enhancements, but also how readily available everyone is for customers too. Because just from like own experience, getting in touch with a tech company because you're having issues or something, it takes forever, or you get some sort of automated bot back and then no actual response in that kind of loop cycle. Whereas, especially now, this 4-pronged approach, there's literally someone at every single journey that the customer is at.
Yeah, 100%. And I completely agree. When I've worked at other organisations and I came into Radar, it was a breath of fresh air in terms of how available and kind of how willing to talk to our customers. Like everybody is. So, if we're having an issue and it needs a developer on the phone, then a developer will get on the phone. It's not just the customer facing teams. Actually, we do have everybody available to draw in when we need the resource. But in terms of the product development and kind of how we're managing the customers and how we take feedback on board, we genuinely do. We do a survey every year to get feedback from our customers, both from the front end users, so those, the carers, the nurses, the people going into Radar, reporting events, completing audits, through to our main contacts and our the senior stakeholders within our partners. And those surveys are really useful, and they genuinely do drive what we do and any changes that we need to make, and any kind of issues that we see in terms of the support that we're giving or anything like that. It really does allow us to grow and develop. So that I would say, that's really important.
Yeah, and I guess it works both ways, doesn't it? Because obviously, if we're there for them, they're going to be there for us, and they're going to help us drive our product.
Yeah.
Obviously with marketing and things like that. So I think it works hand in hand.
It does. And with the user group, some of the things that has become really apparent is actually, again, these sorts of things don't exist for some of the other companies that do the same sort of thing as we do. So actually people are siloed, they are doing their own thing. So both our partnership with customers, but actually us facilitating this community of different partners and sharing and the best practice and all of that. Again, it's what makes Radar a community in itself, isn't it? Radar Healthcare, a community in itself.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something that we hear across all our partners, that is what makes us stand out, basically, how much we care and that we are really committed to that partnership approach. It's not just customer facing teams that are super eager and keen to get on the phone with people when they need to. Obviously, like you mentioned, the developers are always ready, available, jumping on calls, going on Teams calls whenever they're needed. And I think you find that across the business, like from senior management all the way from the top to everyone else as well. So, final question then. Looking ahead, how do you see the future of health tech evolving, and what role do you believe Radar Healthcare will have in this?
From conversations I've had and kind of events that I've been to, I think from my perspective, there's going to be a lot more in terms of AI and kind of predictive data. So being able to predict trends rather than waiting for things to happen. And in terms of people are now, it's very rare that we come across kind of like people still on paper. It's usually, if they're moving to Radar Healthcare, it's from another digital system. So I think that kind of thing has changed. And so now it's more about actually what do we get out of the data? What do we get out of the analytics? So that's where I think Radar Healthcare is really powerful. Our analytics engine is state of the art, and we're just scratching the surface in terms of the possibilities. So as part of our roadmap, as we develop and as we kind of enhance the analytics function and the other areas of Radar. So one of the things that is on our roadmap and that we're actively working on is actually moving Radar Healthcare as a product onto a new framework, which I won't get into. That's too technical anyway for me.
For another time.
Another podcast with somebody more technical. But basically, it's by moving and kind of rebuilding Radar in this new way, it opens the doors for all these different options and all these different possibilities where we can start using AI, we can start using kind of natural language query. So without having to look at a dashboard, you can just go, how many falls did I have last week that involved Joe Blogs or something like that? And you can just ask it and it's going to tell you the data, it's going to tell you, and then you can start predicting what's going to happen. So using the information that we've got, actually we can see if we carry on this trend, we're going to have a spike, or based on kind of the situation that's happening right now, we've got a higher number of, a higher risk of having some sort of infection or whatever that might be, but actually using the data and using the AI to start predicting and driving. And the other thing is using more smart devices, so actually reducing time to respond to things. So if it's like a wearable device and that sort of thing, actually there's so much more that we can do than actually just capture the information. It can start triggering different things, so reducing the time to act by automating that. So actually the things that need to be a person are still a person, but actually let's reduce the noise and the time in between. So that's where I see it going, and I think Radar Healthcare really is in the forefront of that in terms of the capabilities of our analytics engine and what we can do with the APIs into Radar and triggering events from different devices and all of that. Yeah. So it's really exciting. I'm excited to see what happens in the next kind of 2 to 3 years. I think it's going to be a very different landscape. Yeah,
and I think it's all about obviously developing Radar Healthcare as that learning system, isn't it? Yeah. It's not just about kind of filing this data away. It's about what is the impact, what is the insight from this? How can I make positive change?
Definitely. And one thing that I remember somebody kind of saying one time when I was at a meeting, it's data versus intelligence.
Yeah,
you can have
I was in the same meeting.
Yeah, you can have a whole host of data, but actually, like, what's it telling you? It's like having a massive big table in a spreadsheet. It's like, great, I've got loads of information here, but what's it telling us? Yeah. Whereas actually, like you say, having actually the intelligence and being able to pinpoint the learning, seeing the themes, being able to see contributing factors, you might be able to see, do you know what? We can see, looking at this learning, kind of all the different contributions are coming into maybe staff training, and actually you can see that it might be across all the different things. It might be across different event types, so falls or complaints, or there might be an audit, or you might have a particular risk, and actually all pulls together, and the common theme might be staff training. And being able to see that straight away without having to spend hours, days delving into data and pulling it apart, just being able to see that straight away on a dashboard, that's super powerful.
Yeah, and it's obviously, especially within this industry, it could be life-changing.
Yeah, Definitely. You know, if you've got an issue, you know, God forbid there's a particular member of staff or a particular, you know, it might be a particular resident if it's a care home, you know, there might be something that there's lots of little things going on that maybe is not noticed, but when you see the big picture, actually you can start putting the puzzle pieces together and start doing something about it, you know, adding more support where needed, or, you know, putting some kind of mitigating factors into place so that you can lower the risk before actually a major incident happens.
Exactly. Well, thank you very much, Ellie, for joining us this week, and thanks for all you at home for listening. Join us next time for another episode, and don't forget to rate and subscribe, and if you have any questions for us or our guests, please email us at whatthehealthtech@radarhealthcare.com.